Welcome to the Build Your Private Practice podcast, a space for Canadian therapists who want to support others, make an impact, and build a sustainable practice that works for them too. I'm your host, Liane Wood, a registered psychotherapist, group practice owner, and business mentor, and I'm here to help you build a private practice that allows you to keep doing the work you love without burning out. Because the people who need your help the most are counting on you, and you deserve a practice that supports you while you support them. Let's dive in. Well, hello and welcome back to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. I'm so glad you're tuning in today. If you have ever felt like private practice has taken over your life, if the admin, the endless to-do list, and the hustle to keep up have left you feeling more drained than fulfilled, this episode is going to speak to you. And today I'm joined by someone who truly understands the realities behind the scenes of a busy practice. Christine Hakkola is a private practice coach, a retired psychotherapist, and someone with deep insight into what it really takes to build a private practice that supports your life, not the other way around. So we're going to dive deep into the mindset shifts that need to happen if you're feeling overwhelmed and on the edge of burnout, how to rethink where your time and energy are actually going, and what to know about hiring, even if your budget feels tight. Christine brings a beautiful mix of practical strategy and soulful support, and I cannot wait for you to hear what she has to say. Welcome, Christine. It is wonderful to have you here today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Liane. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I would love it if you would just start off here at the beginning by telling our community a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I always feel put on the spot when folks ask me that. I never know where to start. But with this community, I think it's fairly easy. Born and raised in Ontario, I'm actually the original founder of Build Your Private Practice and was with the company for about 7 years before I was able and so lucky to pass it off to Liane. So, former psychotherapist, life coach. I've had a lot of jobs over the years, reaching back into my 20s as a lifeguard, a swimming instructor, aquatics manager, even dabbled in commercial real estate for a little while. But ultimately, my journey has always been rooted in being an entrepreneur. So today I have a new business called Hakkola Horizons, where I support health and wellness practitioners and leadership and executive coaches, as well as B2B service providers in growing and scaling their businesses sustainably and with meaning.
Amazing. Yes,
Yeah.
I was hoping you were going to say that you are the founder of private practice.
I'd almost feel like I was missing a big thing if I didn't say it, because I know there's community who remember me from back in the day.
Well, and I think many of our community does. And then, we're just growing all the time. And so I think it's wonderful for those who are newer in our community to recognize, the history and just, sort of where Build Your Private Practice has come from.
Had a
So
long history coming up on 10 years.
I know I can't wait for next year. I'm not going to spill the beans on what's in the works, but there's something big in the works. Um, Christine, I would love it if you would, if we can kind of start off by talking about, how many private practice owners get into this work to help people, right? But they end up feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and buried in admin. So, can you speak a little bit to what mindset shifts are needed to start building a practice that actually supports you?
Yes. Yes, I can. And I love that you named that piece at the beginning about how therapists generally get into the field. I often say because they have such big hearts, right? I don't think I've ever met a therapist who doesn't have a great big, like bleeding heart for helping people and serving, regardless of what their niche is. And I think that's the quality that makes a lot of therapists really great at what they do and helps them create transformational outcomes for their clients. And it's a quality that can really come back to bite them when it comes to running a business.
Mhm.
Because a lot of therapists who get into private practice do so for that first reason, right? Because they want to help people. They're also drawn to the freedom and flexibility that owning a private practice and being an entrepreneur holds. The problem arises because most of us get into it not realizing that we're actually becoming a business owner. that
Mhm.
we're adopting a completely different hat. We're no longer just a therapist. We're actually inherently in dual relationships with our clients because we're also the manager of the business that they're retaining services from. And now we've got to think about administration. We have to think about operations. We have to think about filing taxes and bookkeeping and accounting and marketing, of course. And most therapists don't have a background in any of those things. Maybe they have a background in one, they came at it from a background in finance or a background in marketing, but there are so many different aspects to running a business that a lot of us just don't anticipate. And in the beginning stages, therapists end up just really hustling to do all the things. And because therapists are often great at what they do, they got into this field for a reason. They can build up a successful one-on-one practice just through their hustle, through their warmth, through the connections and referrals that they make. And usually within a couple of years, a great therapist who has those connections will have a thriving practice. And most folks I meet can get to that point with some hustle and some hard work over a few years, but then they kind of hit a ceiling. And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, what's next? Because the continued sustainability and growth of a business isn't driven by the same things that got us to that place in the first place. You know, a therapist gets there on hustle in the first part, and that's not how you grow a business past 100,000, past 150,000. There are really different pieces at play. So I would say the first mindset shift that I would support any private practice owner, any therapist with, is understanding that piece, that you are no longer just a therapist. You are a legitimate business owner. You are an entrepreneur. And all of the wonderful things that got you successful in the first place in your business have absolutely no bearing on getting you to that next phase. And that is through no fault of your own whatsoever. It's just the way it goes. And you were not taught how to do those things. And now we're about to embark on a whole new learning curve of how to potentially grow further and even scale a private practice.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for talking about, that mindset shift. You're absolutely right. There are, this isn't covered. The business side of private practice isn't covered in our therapist training programs. And if you don't come from a business background, it can feel so foreign and so hard, right? And yeah, yeah. So, there's mindset shifts, there's learning curves, all of those pieces.
And I'll just add, I do meet a lot of therapists who get to that stage and will then blame themselves or turn it
Mm,
in themselves and
mhm,
think, if I
mhm.
just worked harder or I should know this, right? And I
Yeah,
can't count,
yeah.
if I had a penny for how many times I've said, this is not your fault. You're amazing. You're not doing anything wrong. You were
Mm,
not trained for this. Nobody expected you to know how to do this.
mm,
And worst case scenario, I see therapists really burn themselves out, pushing so hard.
mhm.
So I think it's so important, A, to recognize, what's going on, and B, to just continually engage in self-care and taking care of yourself along this journey. Because being a therapist is hard enough, never mind also being a business owner.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, launching off of what you just said about how, therapists can hustle and they can build their practice, to, in the 100 to 150,000 revenue range. Most practitioners, when they get to that level, feel like they don't have time to grow or to scale their practice. They reach that point where between sessions and paperwork and running the practice, right? They're like, I don't have time. Like, I want more, but I don't have time. And so, what would you say they're usually missing when it comes to how they're spending their time?
That's a great question, and a question I get very excited about because I have a lot of great answers for it, I think. Um, First is to bring awareness to the fact that that's happening. Sometimes we're so used to hustling and we're so busy delivering the service of our business that we'll just work and work and work. And suddenly we're working evenings and we're working weekends and we're working 70 hours a week, and other areas of our life are getting neglected. So if that's happening, we're already well beyond the place where we need to stop and go, oh my goodness, what am I really doing here? Being therapist and being business owner. And the first thing, besides besides bringing awareness to the fact that that's happening, that I would encourage any business owner, any therapist to do, is to audit your time, is to spend 2 weeks documenting everything you do during your work hours. Mark it at 15 to 30-minute intervals, what you spent your time on, whether or not it earned you money or had the potential to earn you money. Is this an activity that's purely administrative and isn't adding any value to the business besides the fact that I have to do this thing like client notes, bookkeeping, responding to emails, scheduling, whatever it is? Is this a money generating activity for most therapists? That's seeing clients, right? Our time is well spent seeing clients. Or is this an activity that has future potential to grow my business further? Am I spending time strategizing on marketing, on growing new services, on hiring an associate? There are different ways to spend your time that are what I would consider either good or poor uses of a business owner's time. And after that 2-week audit, once you've spent time paying attention to literally how you spend your time right away, folks who do this get a lot of insights. They realize, wow, I'm spending 2.5 hours a day in my email inbox, returning phone calls, scheduling, right? Doing things that the business owner, the therapist in this case, is actually really overpaid for, right? Because you think about what your hourly rate is versus how much you might pay an administrative assistant, an office assistant, a virtual assistant, whatever you want to call them, to take those things off your plate.
Right.
And the difference is vast. We're talking over $100 an hour difference, maybe over $200 an hour difference in what you're doing and how valuable your time is versus how much you could outsource that for, right? And the feedback that I often get at that point is, well, I can't afford to outsource. And I'll say, well, of course you don't feel like you can afford to outsource because 15 to 20 hours of your time every single week is spent doing these things that should be outsourced, right? And that if you could buy back your time, if you could buy back those 15 to 20 hours by hiring somebody for 20, maybe $30 an hour, and you don't have to do it all at once, start small, maybe 5 hours a week, buy back that time. And then ask yourself, well, if I had those 5 hours back, those 10 hours back, those 15 hours back, what would I be doing? Well, I could make more clients. I could put a little more attention into marketing. I could improve my ability to have those initial conversations and convert more clients. I could maybe go get more training and do an even better job as a therapist and attract more clients and have better outcomes as a result.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very passionate about this.
I can tell you are very passionate about this. But I love it because there's so much truth and value in what you're saying. And, your whole analogy of looking at, how much do you earn as a therapist per hour versus how much, could you pay somebody, an admin person, to do some of these things that are, really taking up so much of your time. And I know for me, my first hire was my bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Mostly because I really passionately do not like bookkeeping.
That's a really good point. And I'm so glad you said that, Liane, because earlier I mentioned about the different types of tasks, whether they're administrative or money generating or have the potential to grow your business. And what you just mentioned is another really important factor is how much you like the task.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What makes a business sustainable in part is the fact that we love what we're doing. And if we're 5, 10, 15 hours a week doing things we absolutely hate, whether it's bookkeeping or marketing or what have you, we're eventually going to grow to resent our businesses.
Absolutely.
So in addition to outsourcing things that are, you'd never pay somebody $200 an hour to check email. You just wouldn't. Right? Also getting strategic and outsourcing the things like bookkeeping or marketing that we absolutely hate to do so that we can stay in our zone of genius and do the things we love.
Oh, absolutely. Like I just remember having the my thought process on it was, first of all, I don't like it. I really passionately do not like bookkeeping.
Right
Secondly,
here.
I'm completely incompetent at it, right? Like I just don't know how to do it. I can read financial statements, that's great, but the actual nitty-gritty bookkeeping, I don't know how to do it. And so if I am forced to do it, first of all, I will procrastinate forever because I don't want to do it.
Mhm.
Secondly, when I get into it, it is going to be so painfully slow because I don't know how to do it. Right. And so I just started looking at, okay, if realistically, if I was going to do my own bookkeeping, how long is it going to take me? It's like, well, forever because I don't know how to do it. And if I could just not do it and pay a bookkeeper, like you said, $30 an hour to like for a good bookkeeper to do it, like it's a private practice. It's not a multi-million-dollar corporation. It doesn't take out like a couple of hours a month for a bookkeeper, max, to do your books on an ongoing basis. So, what's that, $60?
Yeah, exactly. And you think about how much that $60 out, or even if it was $200 out,
I
right?
know, right?
Whatever the cost, versus what you could be doing by buying back that time, right?
Well, there's
$60
buying back the
more
time.
in a month is going to cover that.
Right, but the reduction in frustration and resentment and all that, anyways, yeah, right. It's just massive. And so, yes, I'm so on board with you when we're talking about, outsourcing the things that you really don't like, and also the things that are just what I call time sucks, right? It's just dragging me away from the things that I need to be doing or that I should be doing. But hiring help can really feel risky for a lot of people, right? Especially in a field where our work is so personal. And so, curious to know what you would say to a practitioner who knows they need support, but isn't sure how to start or even whether they can afford it.
Also, great question.
Mhm.
And the first thing I would say is that fears around hiring are so incredibly normal. I would almost venture to use the word pervasive. I
Mm.
don't think I have ever met a therapist or a business owner in general who hasn't had at least a few fears about hiring, myself included, right? Because our business is our baby. And we've been doing it for so long. And most of us, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm a bit of a self-professed control freak, and I have a hard time delegating things out, trusting things to other people, because I've had this story, as many of the clients that I've worked with do too, that no one's going to do it better than me. Right?
Mhm.
And in many ways, that's true, right?
Mhm.
Because we're doing the thing we're passionate about.
Mhm.
We're on our right path. We've got the training, we've got the experience, and we're going to do an amazing job. And it's really hard to find help to bring someone else into the business that's going to do as good or better a job than you. And there are some things that you might choose to never outsource. Maybe you decide that you're never going to have an associate in your practice. You always want to be the one seeing clients. Fine, that's your choice.
Yep.
However, I've also never met a therapist who's great at everything, right? We all have areas, you mentioned bookkeeping. I'm right there with you with the bookkeeping as well, that we're really not good at, and that we could actually be causing more harm to our business than good. So
Mhm.
I think the first thing to really know and trust is that you don't have to hire somebody for every aspect of your business. In fact, unless you're looking to grow a seven-figure company or a big, massive corporation, I actually wouldn't recommend that. But what I would start with is the things that are sucking up your time,
Mhm.
taking time away from doing activities that earn you money or have the potential to earn you money, or things that you really, really hate doing, and
Mhm.
realizing that the things you hate doing, not everybody hates doing.
Right.
There are people out there, surprise, surprise, I'm ready to drop a bombshell here, that love finances, that love bookkeeping. There are
Mm.
people out there that love marketing, that have degrees in those things, that have formed
Mhm.
their own careers around those things, and that are absolutely amazing at it if you can find them. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's another block is, well, how do I find them? Right? There are tons of job boards out there. There's word of mouth referral sources. There's a massive Facebook group called Build Your Private Practice with thousands of other therapists across Canada who have hired rock star people for things like bookkeeping, marketing, virtual assistant, administrative support, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So first, I would recognize that there are people out there who are going to do parts of your job as good or even better than you.
Yes.
Secondly, there are plenty of people out there if you just ask around and start to learn where to find them. And
Mhm.
what I would say third is start with the end in mind.
Mhm.
Take away all the fears, put them on a shelf, right? You're not hiring right now in this moment, but if we can put the fears on a shelf and let ourselves dream, what would it look and feel like? What would be happening in the day-to-day of my business if I could find this imaginary, hypothetical, rock star, amazing person that I would feel comfortable with and that I would trust to run this part of my business? And write a job description for them, right? Use ChatGPT, absolutely use AI, to the degree that it's helpful, and write a job description that perfectly encompasses the personality, the skills, the experience that you want this person to have, and a very clear list of the tasks that you want to outsource. And you know where you're going to get that list from is your time audit that you
Right.
get here.
Exactly.
I just did this exercise for like the bajillionth time a few weeks ago. And within 3 days, I'd already created a new job posting and put it out there because I realized there was about 15 line items on my own time audit that I shouldn't be doing.
Mhm.
Doing that time audit, pulling those things out, creating your job description with the end in mind, and just getting it out there everywhere you can, and then doing your due diligence on the interview process. I would say don't ever hire the first person you interview without interviewing at least 2 other people. I would say at least 3 people. My MO is I try to get at least 10 to 20 applications, at least. Sometimes you'll open the floodgates and get 200 applications, but
Yeah.
narrow it down to the top 5 or 10 and do even a 20-minute, I call it a 20-minute coffee chat, like a meet and greet. Just
Yeah.
get on Zoom with them, talk with them, see if you even like each other, right? And if you do, narrow it down to 3 people that you're going to bring in for a longer interview and ask them all the questions, share all your fears, give them the hypothetical scenarios, right? And if you go through that process with 3 people, chances are good that you're going to find somebody really, really amazing. And the last piece I'll say around this, a couple of my mentors now have given me the advice around hiring is to hire slow and fire fast. Right? If
Mhm.
somebody's not a right fit for your business, don't keep them around for 6 months or a year just because you're scared to let them go. Right? Be quick to let go if somebody's not the right fit, and slow to hire to feel really confident in that person you're bringing into your business.
Oh, there's so much good in there. The hire slow and fire fast is yeah, it's something that I've done for quite a while. Like even in my previous career in insurance was, to really take the time during the hiring process to feel as comfortable as you can, right? I mean, I don't think there's a bulletproof way to hire and never, end up with someone who maybe isn't the perfect fit. But to take your time, when you take your time and you're thorough, you increase your chances of getting a right fit person. And yeah, yeah, you're just hitting on so many good things, Christine. I could go on forever, but I'm very mindful of our time, and so I really want to thank you so much for joining me today. I know that so many people in our community are going to walk away from this conversation feeling more empowered, less alone, and hopefully inspired to take that next small but powerful step towards building a practice that truly supports them. From mindset shifts to the nitty gritty of time management and hiring, it's really clear that building a sustainable practice isn't about doing more, it's about doing the right things. So, if this episode has given you a spark, if it's made you pause and think, yes, this is what I've been needing, please share it with a fellow therapist or leave us a review. Your words help others find the show, and it means so much. So, until next time, take care of yourself the way you so generously take care of others. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a fellow Canadian therapist who needs this. And remember, the work you do matters. Keep showing up, keep holding space, and keep building a practice that works for you. If you're looking for practical tools or support to grow your practice with more clarity and confidence, head to buildyourprivatepractice.ca. There's lots waiting for you there. I'll see you next time.